All right, in this video, this is part one to creating a custom calendar from scratch. This will be a long series because we have a lot to cover. Definitely, without a doubt, this is going to be the longest series we will do, I probably ever will do for any KLWP application, or KWGT or KLOC. Now, one minor update if you've been keeping up with the CraftCal, I do have a V4, two minor fixes. One was that I did not have the global font applied to the month name up here, so I fixed that. And then also what I did is I took away the animation. If you loaded up CraftCal V3, there is an animation inside of that, and it was making some people think, oh, it's not showing up, especially if you didn't have a certain number of screens. So I have an animation on it now, but I did remove that animation, and you can pick up CraftCal V4 from my free components folder. Now, I still have an animation applied to this because we're going to be creating one from scratch, and I'm going to show that here on screen one as we create it. Now, part one, we're going to talk about Sunday or Monday first. We're going to focus on getting the days of the week to show up correctly up here. Now, some of you may think, oh, we could just type in Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or whatever, and you're exactly right, you could. But this is a good learning experience if you want to learn more about the module index and the power of the module index. We're going to be using that so much in this entire series. This is a good way to hit the ground running. So as I said, we will be creating this from scratch, and I do have a component called Calendar from Scratch Part 1. The Part 1 is going to be dealing with Sunday or Monday first. Now, inside of this component, I don't have anything inside of it yet, but I went ahead and added the globals that are going to be necessary for this part of the series. Go ahead and add a font, and that's going to be a global font for all of the pieces or whatever you decide to add it to. Go ahead and add a Sun First on-off switch. If the switch is on, Sunday will be the first day of the week. If the switch is off, it will be the last day of the week. Go ahead and add a cell width, cell W, that's a number global, and this will be the width of all of these cells as well as little cells that we have up here for our days of the week. This DOWH, that is a number global as well. That stands for day of week height. So basically it's the height of this little container that holds all of our days of the week. Another number global, text size, that's going to be a piece that we can apply to all of our items, and we can adjust this one number and it will actually change all of the text items within that component, and we can do it based off of percentages of the text size. And then last but not least, but the most important one quite frankly, is this list global called weekdays. I'm going to use the same names that I have in the component that I've already uploaded to my free components folder, CraftCal V4. I'm using the same names, and we'll try to use the same codes as well. But inside of that list global called weekdays, notice the order I have these typed in. So you can use whatever you want for the days of the week. However, you cannot have any two that match up. Like if you wanted to use a single letter, you could not do S and S because it would only show up once, to my knowledge. Same thing for Tuesday and Thursday. So I've decided to use 3 letters for each day of the week, put them in this order. And the reason why, I want to go ahead and point something out. When we put them in this certain order, they have an index in which we can access them inside of the list. Since Sunday is the first item, it has an index of 0, followed by Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Saturday is going to have an index of 6. It is the 7th item in the list, but it has an index of 6. So it's important you put those in that order. Once you have all that created, go ahead and set some default values to the cell width and the day of the week height. I have a 100 by 100. This will actually form a square, but we can adjust that later. I'm going to go ahead and cut Sunday first on. Make sure you have a font set, and I have my text size set to 40. I'm going to go back into the items for this calendar from scratch part 1. I'm going to add a stat group, and I'm going to call this stat group days of the week. This stat group needs to be horizontally centered. And now we want to start adding some items into this days of the week stat group. Now let's go ahead and add an overlap group inside of this days of the week stat group. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create something like what you see here, and this is from CraftCal V4. This overlap group is going to hold the name of the first day of the week, whether it be Sunday or Monday, depending on our global. I'm going to go into that overlap group and I'm going to go ahead and add a rectangle. Now, the reason why I'm adding a rectangle is because we're going to create a cell for our day of the week to sit in. I'm going to give it a width of cell width. I'm going to give it a height of day of the week height, DOWH. Now, yes, we have a square because it's 100 by 100 right now. For paint, you can eventually make this completely transparent. For now, I'm going to make it semi-transparent so we can still see where we are on the screen. I'm going to come back to this overlap group that has the rectangle in it, and let's go ahead and add some text. And for this text, I'm going to go ahead and apply the global font, the text size, and now we're ready to see this first day of the week. Now, I have Sunday first cut on, so this should return a Sunday, but I'm going to explain this code to you step by step as well. Now, here's the code. Let's break it up step by step to see why we are getting Sunday returned to us. Now, before we dive into all this, let me show you how we can access that list global that we called weekdays. You see weekdays is showing up here, and that's that list global, and these are the items that are in that list global. I can access that list global by doing GV, the name of the list, which is called weekdays. And if I put comma and I put a 0 here and I close it up and put my dollar symbol, it says Sunday. What this is doing is this is accessing the list global weekdays, and whatever number we have here, it's going to access that particular item's index. So index of 0, we have Sunday. I can come in here and change this to a 4 and check out what we get. Thursday, well, that's the index of 4, Thursday. I can do a 6 and it's going to return the Saturday there, as you can see there. Now, if we type in a 7 or anything higher, we don't have an item with that particular index, so we don't even need to worry about it. But I do want to point out GV weekdays is getting used quite often in this code, so I want you to understand what GV weekdays does. GV weekdays, comma, some number or some other index, you'll see in a second, it will access that particular item in the list global. I hope that makes sense. Now, let me take away this 8 and let me do GV weekdays, comma, SIM index, comma, 1. I need an extra parentheses, and now yet again we see Sunday. Now here's why. The reason why we see this is because if we look at this picture over here, the days of the week stack group that I have in this picture, this overlap group that we've already created, it has a rectangle in it, and now we're working on this word. This overlap group has an index of 0. SIM index 1 is the module index in its parent's parent. Now, parent's parent. I've gone over this in the past, but let's talk about this again. Let me just check this for a second. This text item, its parent is this overlap group. Well, the index of this parent in relationship to its parent, the stack group, this overlap group, which is the same one as we have here in this picture, this has an index of 0. So now let's go back to that code. GV weekdays, SI module index, comma 1, we're referring to this overlap group here. And since it's the first one, it has an index of 0. So really what KLWP is seeing right here for SIM index, comma 1 is seeing a 0 there, which is returning weekdays 0, and there is why we see Sunday. Now, as we start copying and pasting this overlap group, it's going to go from Sunday to Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, and all we have to do is copy and paste. We don't have to type in anything else. That may not make much sense, but we're going to see this right here in a moment. So, I'm going to delete this part of the code, and let's just go over this first piece for right now. If GV sun first, well, that means if our sun first is on, which we have cut it on, I want to see Sunday first for right now, then I want to return GV weekdays, comma, SIM index, comma 1. Don't worry about the rest of the code right now, because this is exactly what I just showed you a moment ago. since Sun First is on, we're going to return GV weekdays, the module index, comma 1. Well, this is GV weekdays 0. That's why we see a Sunday. Let me check this. Let me back out of here, and I'm going to go back to this overlap group with an index of 0. Now I'm going to copy and paste that entire thing. I did not change any text. I copied and pasted the entire overlap group, and now look at what we have. We have Monday. Let's go look at the code, and I didn't change anything. I just copied and pasted. But now, since GV Sun First is still on, we want to return an item in our list called weekdays, but now we want to do SIM index, comma 1. We're talking about the index of this group. The index of this group is 1. So we want to return weekdays, comma 1. Weekdays, comma 1 is Monday. And notice that's exactly what we're getting. Again, that is so awesome because all I have to do now very quickly, I can take that overlap group and I'm going to go ahead and copy, and I'm just going to keep on pasting until I see Saturday. Boom, just like that. Now, what's cool about this? Well, what we can do before I explain the rest of the code, I can come back into this list. I'm going to tap on this box and I'm going to edit it. You can put whatever you want inside of this list as long as it's not getting duplicated. So I can say A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, what would be the point of doing this? But notice it's automatically updating it in that order in which I typed it in. Obviously, I want to go back and do the Sunday through Saturday again. But I want to show you the power of SIM index. We're going to be using it a lot. So there's our days of the week that are back. But now I want to explain what happens if Sunday first is off. Well, watch what happens if I cut Sun First off. Now, Sunday is not first. It appears that everything got slid over to the left and the Sunday got bumped to the end. That's where the second part of that code that I told you not to worry about comes into play. So let me show you that part of the code now when Sun First is off. I'm going to go back to my items, days of the week, and I'm going to come to that overlap group with an index of 0. I'm going to go to the text. Now, this part of the code is no longer valid right here. This stuff right here no longer works because GV Sun First is not on, it is off. So what we want to do now is we want to access GV weekdays, comma, GV weekdays, comma 0. What in the world does that mean? Well, let's find out and see what happens. GV weekdays, now comma. The next thing that needs to come here is some number, right? Let me just go ahead and remind you of that. If I put a 1 here, I close it up and put parentheses. It's showing me a Monday because weekdays 1, the index of 1 is Monday. But now look at this part of the code. I have GV weekdays, comma, GV weekdays again, comma 0. But then after that, I have comma, SI, M index, comma 1, oh my goodness, plus 1. Now what is this doing? What is all this stuff doing? Okay, we're seeing a Monday, but what the heck does this mean? Well, I'm going to come down here and show you another code. Let me do GV weekdays, and I'm going to put 2 numbers in here. So what we have here with 2 numbers, I have weekdays, comma 2, comma 0. Well, that's kind of what we have going on in here. We have GV weekdays, comma, and then we have this thing right here in the middle, GV weekdays 0. Well, that's where I have this 2 at. Check out my commas. I got a comma here and a comma here, and in between that I'm accessing something. That's where that 2 is. But then I have another comma and I have SI module index, comma 1 plus 1. Well, that's where this 0 is. So look at this third word up here, Sunday. And if I come in here and change this 0 to a 1, it goes to Monday, 2, Tuesday, 3, Wednesday, 4, Thursday. Notice what's happening here. What it's doing is this last number, it's accessing whatever index we have in GV weekdays. You may say, okay, well, big deal. Well, let me go to 5. All right, let me go to 6. Now let me go to 7. Ooh, look what happened there. When we try to access the 7th index, we don't have a 7th index here. This is the default value that it will go back to. Now this can be anything you want it to be. Notice I'm typing some stuff in there. Random stuff. I mean, totally random. R-A-N-D-O-M, random. But if I come back here and access this last number here, if I access 0, I am going to get something because I do have an index of 0. 1, 2, 3. It's working, and it works just fine. Here's 5. Here's 6. That's the last index. And now when I try to access 7, it's going to go back to the default value here, and I've called it random. So now this is why this part of the code is kind of has 3 pieces. We have GV weekdays. We're accessing a default, and that's only if this SI module index comma 1 plus 1 is not true. If it does not have one of those indexes over here. That's how I understand this, at least. Very confusing, but hopefully this is helping it make a little bit of sense. So if I come here and I put SI M index comma 1 and I close this up. Okay, I want the code. The code should be returning a Monday, but yet this thing down here is returning a Sunday. That's why I have this +1 tacked onto the end of the code, and now watch that Sunday turn into a Monday. So I'm getting Monday on all 3 of these, and now that's this part of the code that we see from here all the way to here. So I'm going to take all this and I'm going to delete everything that I was going over, and this is our code to get Monday. I'm going to back out of here. I'm going to go down here to Friday. Okay, so Friday. Let's talk about Friday a little bit. What's Friday sitting in? Okay, we got index of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This Friday group has an index of 4. That's the SI module index comma 1. It has an index of 4. Let's go to that one. Let's go to the text and let's look at the code. So let me explain this to you one more time to make sure and understand why we're getting Friday. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do GV weekdays. I want to access that list. I'm going to have some default value here. And now remember, the SI module index, we said it was the 4th group, right? Well, look at what it's returning. It's returning a Thursday, but yet we want it to be a Friday. Well, this Friday, this overlap group has an index of 4. So it's looking at GV weekdays 4. Well, if we look at GV weekdays 4, that's Thursday. But I want it to be a Friday, so I can come right here and I can take that 4 and I can add 1 to it, and it's going to return that Friday. That's how we're getting that to work in that part of the code. It's important that you understand this if you want to understand when we actually start creating the dates on the calendar and all this other stuff that comes up later on in this series. So let me check that. And now I'm going to come to the last one here, this Sunday. So let's figure out the indexes. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This has an index of 6 right here. So I'm going to come to this index of 6. I'm going to go to the text and go to the code. And why are we getting a Sunday? Because Sunday has an index of 0. Well, if I come down here and I do GV weekdays, comma default, comma SI module index, comma 1, we're getting Saturday. Well, why are we doing that? Because we just said we were in the 6th index. That's returning a Saturday. But remember how I've been doing +1 for the last few minutes? If I put +1, look at what it does. This becomes a 7. We don't have a 7th index, so it's reverting back to this default. And inside of this default, I can put whatever I want. I can put Sunday there if I want to. Or if you look at my code, I have GV weekdays. And what is the index of Sunday? 0. So comma 0, close it up, bam. I'm getting whatever item I have in this index of 0. That's good to do because if you ever come in here and change these names, you don't have to change a daggone thing about this code. Everything is going to work nicely. I hope that makes sense. That is tricky. That can be hard to wrap your head around, and I'm sure I'm not explaining it the best I could, but I'm trying. So let me check that, and now what I'm going to do, technically we're done with this, but let me show you one more thing. This is really cool. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to delete everything except for the first one. Again, the power of SI module index. Let me come to that rectangle and let me take that paint and let me make it completely transparent now. Completely transparent. So now we don't have that grayish, semi-transparent white rectangle anymore. Come back to my overlap group, copy, and let's paste this all the way up. And as you can see, we're still generating those names like we should. And now we don't have that color background. I told you we were going to get rid of that, right? Let me come to globals and let's cut Sunday first back on, and now we have Sunday coming first. So again, I hope you see the power of SI module index, because now we can quickly come back in here. I showed you this where you can come change the names and it will automatically update based on the way we have these codes set up. So how's that for part one? Part two, from here on out, it's just going to get crazier and crazier. We're going to be using SIM index a lot. I've said that many times and I'm going to say it many times more, but that's it for this video. I hope it helped.